Few countries have ridden the economic roller coaster as hard as Ireland, from booming Celtic tiger to busted debt-ridden bailout case. Now, after years of painful austerity, things are looking up once more. Is it time to toast the great Irish recovery? Hello and welcome back to Analysis Review. With me to discuss this are James Warren, Research Fellow at the National Institute, and from Dublin, Vincent Boland, our correspondent in Ireland. James, could I start with you? I mean, we've had a forecast now that we could be seeing 4.5% growth for 2014. We've got a government that says it's confident of meeting its deficit targets. Is it time to crack open the champagne for Ireland?
Well, to a certain extent, Ireland is growing quite strongly. If you look at GNP rather than GDP, which might be a better indicator of national income, we've seen that Ireland has been growing last year as well as this year, which suggests with unemployment coming down that it might be entrenched. On the other side, if you look at GNP per capita, it's about the same level as it was in 2004.
So there's a lost decade.
There is indeed, yes.
Well, Vincent, you're in Dublin. How does it feel from over there? Are people sort of breathing a great sigh of relief? Or is it, as James is suggesting here, they've just about crawled back to where they were 10 years ago?
I think in Dublin there is really a sense that things are recovering. I would characterise what we've seen so far as not so much the great Irish recovery as the great Irish bounce back from the great Irish crash. So when you look at the growth numbers that came out about 10 days ago that showed 7.7% growth in the second quarter, that's coming back from a very, very low base and being driven by factors that were really in the doldrums like construction. So it's a clawing back of a lot of lost output, and I think that one would be very foolish to read too much into the numbers. But the feeling in Dublin is that things are recovering, yes.
And James, looking at sort of just standing back a bit, and I mean, lots of interest outside of Ireland in what's going on, but particularly elsewhere in the Eurozone, given just the role that Ireland played in that, was assigned really during the whole Eurozone crisis. Is this now, do you think, going to be a model for others?
I wouldn't necessarily say that it's austerity that has dragged them through this. It was rather the decisiveness of policy making, that they managed to make decisions very quickly and then stick to these decisions, and they were very credible. Yes, these were extremely painful decisions, but they were credible, and this helped reduce uncertainty and help investment come back in, and this was really what repaired it. These are lessons that France and Italy especially could learn in terms of how to pass economic policy and how to go about getting their reforms through.
Vincent, where do you see, I mean, moving forward now, do you think, I mean, is the sense that things are going to return to the sort of ways of the past, the type of economy, the type of growth that Ireland used to get? Or I hear that, that a lot of voices saying we must never go back to this sort of property-dependent model.
Well, I think that there's a real sort of sense here that we must not repeat the mistakes of the past. And I think the question is, how do we do that? I think that government and policymakers, generally speaking, are sort of struggling with how do we actually really avoid the mistakes of the past? I think that the government and policymakers generally are trying very hard not to be lulled by the bounce back, but there are certain indicators that suggest that that things are getting out of hand here and there, particularly in the property market, which is completely unreconstructed and it badly needs to be reformed. We see house prices rising at 25% a year on an annual basis in August. That is entirely down to supply and demand factors. There's just no supply and there's huge demand after no new houses being built.
Despite all the stuff we read about ghost estates in all around the country,
yeah, all the spare housing is in the wrong places, Fred. Nobody wants to live in those places anymore. It's in Dublin that there's real housing crunch. There's so little supply and huge demand for family homes that just aren't coming onto the market because they're not being built at the moment.
Right, James, what do you think that Ireland now needs to do to build on this in terms of putting its public finances on a longer term, sort of quite more stable footing?
Well, I think in terms of public finances, they will be doing very well this year. I think they're going to beat their target very comfortably. They tend to overestimate the amount of interest payments that they would need to have, and I think that they'll pass that. So I think they're on the right road in terms of public finances, but they probably need to start loosening austerity a bit, especially in terms of investment. Their capital to GDP ratio, or rather, sorry, investment to GDP ratio is at historical lows, and this is not good for an economy in the long run.
James Warren, thank you very much. And thank you, Vincent, over there in Dublin in the FT's office there. And thank you for watching. To read more on this and other topics covered by our analysis team, please go to ft.com/analysis. Until the next time, goodbye.